There's a saying my grandmother used to whisper whenever pride and family mix like oil and fire. Be careful what you feed, some mouths only learn to bite. Samira Haynes had fed her family for years. Money, patience, second chances, served on fine china, or through late-night wire transfers that nobody ever thanked her for. And tonight, as she stood before the mirror in her downtown Seattle condo, smoothing the silk of her $3,000 gown, she promised herself this birthday would be different. She was 34, a senior marketing director at Reynolds and Pierce Communications, a firm whose offices overlooked Puget Sound like glass castles. She'd climbed there alone, no inheritance, no shortcuts, just caffeine, grit and faith. And yet, when her phone buzzed, it wasn't congratulations. It was her mother asking if the restaurant would validate parking. Samira smiled faintly, already hearing the tone that would follow. The one that meant, "You're doing too much again, darling." But this time, she didn't flinch. She wanted this night to mean something, to show her mother, her older sister Claire Doyle, and Claire's 17-year-old daughter Brinley, that hard work could buy more than survival. It could buy peace. She turned from the mirror, picked up the cream-colored clutch, lying beside a neat row of receipts, spa treatments, candles, a last-minute hair appointment that had cost as much as a week's rent in Claire's world, and whispered to herself, "It's not about showing off, it's about showing up." Outside, the Seattle skyline was wrapped in fog and amber light. The driver from Emerald Black Car Service opened her door with a smile. "Evening, Miss Haynes." "Heading to the Azure Room?" "Yes," she said, slipping into the seat. "It's a special night." The Azure Room wasn't just a restaurant, it was an event. Gold stemware, waiters who spoke in murmurs. A single dinner could run $400 a head without dessert, which was exactly why Samira had chosen it. She wanted elegance, closure and maybe just maybe, her mother's pride. Inside the private dining suite, a cascade of crystal chandeliers, threw soft light across the table, she'd arranged herself. Ivory roses, tapered candles, a silver card that read reserved for the Haynes celebration. Her friends arrived first, Justin Blackwell and his husband Harry Snow, both dressed sharp, their laughter the kind that filled a room without stealing it. Then came Joy Glenn, her college roommate turned ER nurse, carrying a small wrapped box. "Samira," Joy said, hugging her. "You look like a dream." "Thank you," she whispered, exhaling the tightness in her chest. The first hour was perfect. Wine flowed, laughter echoed, and the city outside glittered like a second chandelier. For once, Samira wasn't the provider, just the woman being celebrated. At 7:15 though, her phone lit up again. A text from her mother: "Traffic. Will be late." By 7:45, the door opened. The laughter softened, enswept her family, three shapes framed by the glow of the hallway. Her mother, Millicent Doyle, wore a faded floral dress, and the kind of frown that made waiters apologize without knowing why. Claire, in a tight black blouse and glittered jeans, looked mildly annoyed, and Brinley, God, that girl, strolled in wearing a sequined crop top and sneakers that squeaked against the polished floor. Samira rose, smiling despite the shift in air. "You made it?" "I was starting to. Traffic's awful," her mother interrupted, sliding into the seat nearest the head of the table. "And this place, mercy, it's dark. How do people even read the menu?" The waiter approached with grace, offering champagne. Claire waved him off. "Not for me, thanks. I can't imagine what this costs." Samira caught Joy's glance and forced a laugh. "It's all covered. Tonight's my treat." That apparently was the wrong phrase. Claire's lips curled. "You don't say." For a heartbeat, the air thickened like syrup. Then conversation resumed, awkward but polite. Samira's friends asked about Brinley's dance competitions, about life back in Tacoma. Brinley mumbled answers, without looking up from her phone. As the entrees arrived, salmon glazed with honey and fennel, roasted lamb with rosemary, Samira found herself watching her family more than eating. Her mother picked at the food like it offended her. Claire took a single bite, then whispered something to Brinley that made the girls smirk. When dessert menus appeared, Justin lifted his glass. "To Samira, our anchor, our hurricane, our proof that persistence pays off." The table clapped. Samira blushed, half laughing, half wishing her family would join in. Her mother offered a small smile. "We're proud, honey. Just, don't burn out. Money's not everything." And there it was. The phrase that had shadowed her since college. Money's not everything. As though success needed a warning label. Samira's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. Instead, she lifted her own glass and smiled wide enough for the cameras, her heart quietly breaking under the weight of that soft dismissal. The evening carried on with gifts and polite chatter, but something had shifted. The warmth that had filled the Azure room minutes ago was cooling fast, like the air before a storm, and deep down, Samira knew storms in her family never arrived quietly. By the time the second course arrived, the air inside the Azure room had begun to hum with a quiet kind of strain, the sort that doesn't explode but seeps slow and poisonous. Samira Haynes smiled for her guests, laughed when she should, but her eyes kept drifting toward her family. Her mother dabbed her lips after every sip of water, scanning the room like she was judging its worth. Her sister Claire toyed with the stem of her glass, restless, unimpressed. And Brinley, 17, beautiful in that careless way youth allows, scrolled her phone beneath the table, thumbs flicking in rhythm with her gum. Across the table, Justin Blackwell leaned toward Joy Glenn and whispered, "You can feel it, can't you?" Joy nodded subtly, her smile still fixed. Like watching glass crack. When the waiter approached with the next course, a delicate tower of halibut with lemon butter, Claire gave a small laugh that carried across the room. "My God, Samira," she said. "They charge you a mortgage for this tiny piece of fish." Polite chuckles rippled among the friends, but Samira caught the edge behind the joke. "It's about the experience," she replied softly. Claire tilted her head. "You always were one for appearances." The words landed sharper than silverware. Samira's mother, Millicent, sighed as though trying to calm the waters. "Now Claire, don't start." "Start what?" Claire replied, smirking. "I'm just saying, I'd rather have a good burger than whatever this is." Joy glanced at Samira, eyes asking if she wanted to intervene. Samira shook her head. "Not here. Not tonight." She'd spent months planning this dinner. Booked the Azure room at dawn, the moment reservations opened, paid deposits, hired the florist herself. And for what? To sit through the same small-town spite that had followed her since she moved to Seattle 10 years ago. Her friends resumed talking about work, travel, the upcoming charity gala. Samira tried to focus, but Claire's next words sliced through the laughter. "So," Claire said, swirling her wine, "I heard your bonus this year was what, 20 grand? Must be nice to have money falling out of your ears." Samira's smile froze. "It wasn't 20. And no, it's not falling out of anything." Claire shrugged. "I just hope you're saving for something meaningful. You can't buy happiness, you know." Justin gave a short, incredulous laugh. "She's not trying to buy it. She earned it." The silence that followed was sharp enough to taste. Millicent cleared her throat. "We're all proud, of course, but some of us find joy in simpler things. Like rent payments I cover." Samira wanted to say, but didn't. Instead, she smiled. The polite kind that hides bruises. Then came the part of the night she'd been secretly waiting for, the announcement. A small moment she'd planned as a surprise, something heartfelt that might bridge the distance. She stood, glass in hand, her voice steady despite the tightness in her throat. "Before dessert, I wanted to share something. It's a little overdue, but," she smiled toward Brinley, who barely looked up. "When you were born, I started setting aside money for your future. I wanted you to have options, college, travel, whatever you choose. It's not a fortune, but it's a start." The table went still. Claire's fork paused midair. Millicent's brows rose, and Brinley's eyes narrowed with the first spark of teenage scorn. "You're joking," Claire said flatly. "A fund? Since she was born?" "Yes," Samira said softly. "I've added to it every year. I was planning to tell you both when she started applying to colleges." Claire leaned back, laughing once, cold and humorless. "Well, isn't that generous? All this time we've been scraping by, and you've been squirreling money away. Must feel good to play savior." "Claire," Millicent murmured, but the old warning tone had no strength behind it. "It's not like that," Samira said. "It was for her, not for me." Brinley pushed her plate away. "So basically you've been pitying us." "No, yeah you have." Her voice sharpened. "You get to be the fancy aunt with the skyline apartment, and we're just your charity case." The waiter returned with fresh napkins, smiling, unaware he was walking into a storm. "Dessert menus?" he asked gently. "Not now," Claire snapped. He froze, nodded, and vanished. Samira stood there for a long moment, every muscle tight. Then she exhaled and sat, trying to regain composure. Joy reached under the table, squeezed her hand. Hey, you did something kind. They just can't see it yet. Samira nodded faintly, but her throat burned. Across the table, Claire whispered something to Millicent, who responded with a pitying sigh. Brinley rolled her eyes, whispering, "Must be nice, throwing money around, just to feel important." Samira caught it, everyone did. The laughter that followed wasn't kind. And as the candles flickered low, as the hum of conversations from other tables carried on, something inside her began to shift. It wasn't rage. Not yet. It was clarity, the kind that only comes when you realize love might never be enough to buy respect. Outside, the rain started against the windows. The waiter brought out dessert anyway, a towering chocolate sculpture with gold leaf. It gleamed under the lights, as if mocking her attempt at celebration. The night wasn't over, but the cracks were deepening. And before long, something or someone was bound to break. By the time dessert arrived, even the waiter could sense the fracture running through the table. The soft jazz playing overhead, once elegant and warm, now sounded like mockery. A rich aroma of cocoa filled the air as he placed the final creation before them, a dark chocolate sculpture dusted with edible gold leaf, a single sparkler fizzing at the top like a stubborn star. The plate shimmered beneath the chandelier, delicate letters spelling out, "Happy 34th, Samira." Her friends clapped. Joy snapped a photo, laughing. "You did it, girl. 34 and thriving." Samira smiled, grateful for their light. "Thank you," she whispered. Across the table, Claire muttered something that drew a quiet snicker from her daughter. Millicent reached for her glass as though to ignore it, but her eyes betrayed the faintest smile. The waiter lit the final candle and stepped back. Samira inhaled slowly, the scent of chocolate and champagne wrapping around her like calm before thunder. "Speech," Joy called. "Come on, say something." Samira stood, smoothing her gown. "All right," she began softly. "I just wanted to thank everyone for being here tonight, for celebrating with me. It's been a long road getting to this place. Not just in my career but in life." Her gaze landed on her family. "When you work hard, sometimes people think you're showing off. But the truth is, you're just trying to make something better for the people you love." For a heartbeat, silence. Even Claire looked up, startled by the sincerity. Then Brinley's voice cut through the stillness, clear and sharp. "Better? For who?" "You. You just love showing us how much richer you are." The room froze. Claire hissed, "Brinley." But her smirk stayed. Millicent leaned back, arms crossed, watching. Samira blinked. "That's not fair." "Ah, it's fair," the girl interrupted. "You sit there in your perfect dress, in your fancy restaurant, pretending you care. You want everyone to clap for you, but we all know what you really think of us." A few diners at nearby tables glanced over. The sparkler fizzled out, the smoke curling upward like punctuation. "Enough," Samira said, her voice low, trembling. Brinley pushed her chair back. "You know what, you're right. Enough." She reached for her glass, a tall, ruby-colored cranberry mocktail glistening under the light. Her eyes burned with teenage fury, the kind that doesn't care who gets burned. Before anyone could speak, she flung it. The sound was soft, almost graceful. A splash, a gasp, the quiet crash of ice against silk. Samira's cream gown bloomed red across her chest, liquid dripping down like a slow bleed. The cold shock of it stole her breath. The table fell silent. All around them, forks froze midair, eyes turned, conversations halted. Brinley's voice rang clear, proud, cruel. "Now you look as cheap as you really are." The words landed heavier than the drink itself. For a long moment nobody moved. The waiter stood nearby, horror etched across his face. Joy half rose from her chair. But Samira lifted a hand, her voice steady in a way that didn't sound human. "It's fine," she said. "Please, sit." Her mother turned to Brinley, murmuring, "Sweetheart, calm down, calm down." Justin snapped. "She just assaulted your sister." Claire stood grabbing her purse. "You don't understand. We told her this was too much. Too fancy. She brought this on herself." Joy's jaw dropped. "You're defending that?" But Samira stayed seated, her wet hands resting on her lap, the red stain spreading like ink through paper. The shame felt physical, Warm, sticky, impossible to hide. She looked up slowly, meeting her niece's defiant stare. "Brinley," she whispered. "You just proved why I had to raise my own standards." The girl scoffed, but her voice wavered. Claire looped her arm through her daughter's. "We're leaving," she announced, glaring down at Samira. "You wanted a show, you got one." Millicent rose, smoothing her skirt. "Let's go, girls." And just like that they walked out, past the stunned tables, past the waiter clutching napkins, past the candles still flickering over untouched dessert. Samira sat motionless, hearing only the sound of their footsteps fading toward the door. Her friends surrounded her instantly. Joy knelt beside her, napkin in hand. "Honey, breathe, just breathe." "I'm okay," Samira said, though her voice cracked. "I'm okay." Justin's husband Harry placed his blazer around her shoulders. "You don't have to be. That was." She shook her head.
No tears. Not here.
The waiter appeared with trembling hands. "Miss Haynes, would you like us to?" "No thank you," she interrupted gently. "Just bring the bill." "But ma'am, please." Her tone left no room for argument. When the bill arrived, she slipped her platinum card inside, her hand still shaking. The red stain had cooled now, leaving her skin clammy beneath the silk. As she signed, she caught sight of her reflection in the window. Her hair still perfect, her lipstick untouched, her eyes bright with something new, not shame, not even anger, but realization. The waiter returned, voice trembling. "Happy birthday, Miss Haynes." She smiled faintly. It was educational. Outside, rain fell against the glass, streaking the city lights into red and gold rivers. Her friends escorted her out, silent except for the click of heels and the hum of thunder beyond the valet stand. Seattle glistened, cruel, beautiful, indifferent. Samira paused beneath the awning, watching the storm. The taste of humiliation was sharp in her throat, but deeper still, beneath the ache something colder had taken root. Not hate, not revenge. Resolve, the kind that moves slowly, but never forgets. Seattle slept under a soft rain that night, its skyline blurred by mist and reflections. Inside her high-rise apartment, Samira Haynes stood by the window, the city glowing beneath her feet, a world that had once felt like triumph, now tainted by shame. The dress still hung over the back of a chair, silk stiff where the cranberry juice had dried. It looked like something wounded. Her friends had stayed for hours. Joy making tea, Justin wiping the stain, Harry muttering curses that belonged in no polite dinner hall. They tried to make her laugh, to remind her she'd done nothing wrong. But when the elevator doors closed behind them, the silence that followed was unbearable. She sat down at her marble kitchen counter, opened her laptop, and stared at the screen until the tears finally came. They weren't soft tears of sadness. They were quiet, burning, surgical, the kind that disinfect before they heal. She opened her bank app. Scrolling through the transactions was like reading the story of her own exploitation. 5 years of payments labeled help, $600 for Claire's rent, $1,200 for Brinley's dance lessons, $2,400 loan for a trip to California that was never repaid. And beneath it all, the biggest line of irony, the $30,000 sedan she'd purchased 2 years ago, registered in her name, driven every day by the same girl who had humiliated her in public. Her jaw tightened. The phone buzzed. A notification. Instagram. She clicked. There it was. A shaky, grainy clip, filmed from across the table. Her own niece had posted it. The moment the drink left her hand, the splash, the laughter that followed, captioned "Rich Auntie needed a reality check # sorry, not sorry." Claire had liked the post. Millicent had commented, "Let's keep this off the internet." Dear followed by a nervous emoji. Samira's hand trembled, but not from pain, from control. She reached for her phone, pressed record, and whispered to herself, her voice calm, level, deliberate. "She called me cheap at my birthday dinner," until the bank froze her card. Then she pressed stop. The next hour unfolded like choreography. First call, American First Bank. She spoke to a representative in her usual composed tone. "This is Samira Haynes. I'd like to remove an authorized user from my account immediately." Click. Pause. Confirmation. "Effective tonight," she said. Second call. Evergreen Auto Title Services. "Yes, I'm the registered owner. License plate 7KQ812. She provided documents, proof of ownership, and insurance records. She requested a tow to reclaim possession within 24 hours. I understand it's a family matter, she told the dispatcher. Just do it by the book. Third call. Her lawyer friend from college, Hector Roland. She left a message, voice cool and factual. She no for asset retrieval and financial separation within family lines. No urgency, just closure. By dawn, her hands no longer shook. The next morning, sunlight broke through the fog, soft and clean. Samira dressed simply, jeans, sweater, no makeup, and brewed coffee strong enough to fortify her new resolve. At 11:17 a.m., her phone rang. A number she knew by heart. Claire, she answered. Samira, the voice was sharp, panicked. My card's not working. I'm sitting at a drive-thru with Mom and Brinley and it says declined. Samira took a slow sip. That's because it's no longer active. What do you mean no longer active? You can't just I can, she said, cutting in softly, and I did. Claire's voice rose. That's petty. You're punishing us because Brinley lost her temper. No, Samira said. I'm protecting myself because you all lost your respect. She hung up. Minutes later, another call. This one from a towing service. Miss Haynes? The vehicle's been retrieved. Everything's in order. Though I have to tell you, someone tried to block us at the school parking lot. Samira smiled faintly. That's all right. Thank you for your professionalism. By noon the internet lit up again. A new post. A blurry photo of a tow truck hauling away a silver sedan. Brinley's caption read, "She really took my car. This is abuse." Samira didn't reply. She didn't even watch the comments spiral. That evening her mother called. Samira darling, this is childish. Family doesn't treat family this way. Family doesn't humiliate each other in public, she replied. But here we are. Please, you've made your point. No, Samira said. Not yet, but I will. She ended the call. Then she sent a single group message to all three. Come to my apartment tomorrow at We need to settle things properly. The following evening the doorbell rang exactly at 6. They arrived together, Claire defensive, Brinley tearful, Millicent pretending to mediate. Samira had prepared the room with quiet precision. Her dining table was cleared except for 3 neat piles of papers. Each stack labeled, rent transfers, card charges, automobile expenses. No flowers, no candles. Just truth. Claire's eyes darted to the papers. What is this? Samira gestured for them to sit. Receipts? Every dollar, every favor, every just this once. Millicent sighed. Samira, please. She raised a hand. You've all mistaken kindness for obligation. That ends tonight. She opened the first folder, reading numbers aloud. Over $115,000 in 5 years. Paid rent. Bought cars. Covered trips. And what do I get in return? Public humiliation. Claire stammered. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. Samira interrupted softly. You called me cheap. You mocked me online. So now I'm cutting the cord. Brinley burst out crying. How am I supposed to get to dance practice? You'll figure it out, Samira said gently. The same way I figured out life when no one helped me. Millicent reached for her hand. Samira, don't punish them. These aren't punishments, she said. They're boundaries. The words hung in the air, heavy and irreversible. When they left, the silence that followed felt cleaner than any forgiveness. Samira poured herself a glass of wine, sat by the window, and watched the lights of Seattle blink awake. The city looked new again, untied from guilt, free from the weight of being everyone's savior. In the reflection of the glass, her face looked calm. A woman no longer bleeding for love that didn't know gratitude. And for the first time in her life, Samira smiled, not out of relief, but power. Because for once the account was balanced. The phone calls came first. Long, angry voicemails from Claire, guilt-laced messages from Millicent, tearful texts from Brinley. Samira answered none of them. The silence was harder than the fight, but she kept it. Boundaries, she told herself, were not punishment. They were oxygen. The first real change came 2 weeks later. The endless transfers and bank alerts stopped. For the first time in years, her balance grew instead of drained. Her apartment felt lighter too. No one asking. No one expecting. She filled her evenings with things she hadn't done in years. Long walks along Alki Beach, Saturday markets, laughter that didn't come with exhaustion. She enrolled in a photography class at the University of Washington, something she'd always wanted, but never justified. When her instructor asked her to describe her subject, she smiled faintly. Freedom, she said. By the third week, she'd stopped checking her family's social media entirely. The internet had already moved on. The world forgets humiliation quickly. Unless you keep feeding it. One morning in late April, her phone buzzed again. A text. Short. Unexpected. Got a job at the mall. Saving for a car. Not asking for anything. Just FYI. Brinley. Samira stared at the message for a long time before replying. Proud of you. That's huge. It wasn't much, but it was a start. That summer, Seattle bloomed with lilacs and soft wind. Samira traveled, her first solo trip in years, a 2-week journey through Portugal. She walked cobblestone streets, photographed strangers, and ate breakfast on terraces, overlooking rivers that had forgotten her family's name. When she returned, the voicemail light blinked again. Claire's voice this time, calm but fragile. I'm sorry, Samira. I was angry, jealous, embarrassed, I guess. You didn't deserve what happened that night. I finally got an office manager job in Kent. It's not much, but it's steady. Thank you for waking me up. Samira sat at her counter, listening twice before deleting it. Not out of bitterness, but finality. Some apologies need time to breathe before you answer them. In September, her mother called again, softer than before. You know, darling, I made a mistake. I thought supporting Claire's struggles was love. I didn't realize I was dimming yours. I leaned on you too much. I see that now. The words, unpolished but sincere, cracked something inside her chest that anger had never touched. Thank you, Mom, she said. That means more than you think. By December, things began to quietly realign. Claire moved to a smaller apartment. Brinley worked weekends at a boutique and nights at a cafe. Millicent started attending church again, maybe to pray, maybe to repent. No one asked for money. No one needed to. Then came another birthday, her 35th. Joy insisted they celebrate. Don't let them steal that from you, she said. So they did. But this time not at the Azure Room. They gathered at her mother's modest house in Tacoma, the same one that used to smell of tension and fried onions. But now it smelled like cinnamon stew and a kind of forgiveness. The table was set with mismatched plates. No crystal, no gold leaf, no photographers or skyline views. Just family. Millicent greeted her at the door with a smile that reached her eyes. Dinner's ready, she said, voice trembling. Your favorite roast chicken and peach cobbler. Claire stood by the stove, stirring. She looked thinner, older, humbled. Hey, birthday girl, she said. Hope you like hand-me-down recipes. Samira laughed softly. That's the only kind I like. Brinley emerged from the living room, clutching something behind her back. She looked different too, grounded, steadier, her nails unpolished, her eyes sincere. I made you something, she said quietly. She handed over a handmade card, watercolor edges, messy but heartfelt. Inside, a single $150 bill folded neatly. It's not much, she said, blushing, but it's from my paycheck, for your next trip. You know, to show I get it now. Samira blinked hard. It's everything, Brinley, she whispered. Everything. Dinner was laughter this time. Not the kind that covered pain, but the kind that heals it. Halfway through the meal, Millicent raised her glass of sweet tea. To Samira, she said, her voice shaking. To the daughter who taught us that real love has limits, and that limits are not cruelty. Everyone echoed the toast. Even Claire. Tears fell, but none of them felt heavy. Later that night, as Samira stood by the window, watching the small-town lights flicker, she thought about that awful night at the Azure Room, the splash of red, the silence, the words, now you look as cheap as you really are, and she smiled. Because the stain had faded, but the lesson never had. Some revenge stories end with destruction, hers ended with peace, the kind that comes only when you stop paying for other people's comfort at the expense of your own. She glanced at her phone, snapped a picture of the table behind her, and posted it with a single caption. The bank's still frozen, but the love, that's thawed. The post didn't go viral. It didn't need to. It reached exactly the people it was meant for.